We'll now sequence this conversation to get a more professional perspective, of the development, especially with the planned electricity hike by the Nigerian government. And now joining us via Zoom from Enugu, it's Professor Sam Amadi. He's a former chairman of the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission and also an associate professor and director of the Abuja School of Social and Political Thought. Good morning, Prof. Yes, it's a pleasure to hear your voice again. It appears it's a long Easter break for you.
Yes, I came in on Easter Monday, so yes, I'm still here.
That's right. Good to hear your voice again. The story is now everywhere of the planned electricity hike. The same story continues to permeate the air about how what we currently have is not market reflective. The exchange rates that we're using determining this have are no longer tenable and all of that. But the thoughts from the average Nigerian, I wish you had the opportunity to listen to the phone-in session. It's about how much of these increases can Nigerians currently take. It does appear that everybody is pushed to the brinks, and a little more push would have people falling over. So can you give us a sense of what is happening and whether or not, this whole conversation is timely as it is?
Well, thank you once again. I think really, even here, where in the south is where I am now, you can see that people are feeling the pains. Well, first, you don't have a regular supply of power. So you would spend also on fuel, on diesel. From my own, even in Abuja, my household, in a month, I could spend up to 200,000 on diesel. So the first question is that the poor people, the other Nigerians are burning their candle at both ends. They are not getting the power. They are paying for alternative provision a lot. And now, if you increase tariff, it's not just increasing tariff. It's also the fact that they might still have almost the same level of supply. So they pay high for the meager 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, depending on where they are. Supply also pay for increasing diesel costs, increasing fuel costs. So, and then if you map it also the fact that they pay more for their cars, I pay for diesel, maybe sometimes about 30,000, the whole day is gone. You also pay for fuel for your car and for your wife, depending on your own your household. And then you're also paying other food inflation is gone up. You see the latest MBS report. So what this means that from the same disposable income, the cost of living is real. So people are going to pay this increased tariff, this increased fuel, increased foodstuff, increase everything, school fees, healthcare, from the same salary. So that's the first problem. And second is that, yes, there's a reason to think about increase. Forex crisis is here with us. I mean, if NEC benchmarked dollar to naira maybe at 500 or 700 even, we should be less than that. Maybe they did 3-4 years ago. Today, at best case, at 1.5, 1,500, 1,400, 1,300.
We seem to be having a bit of challenge there with the audio quality from Prof. He seemed to be making some very
points about
can you hear me now?
The state of the sector itself.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Please complete your thoughts.
Okay. Sorry for the. So if you look at that, it means that the NEC now, the position of forex is doesn't make sense anymore. Look at cost of gas. Yesterday, I think the regulator of gas says, look, we're going to increase it by over. If you look at the increase, maybe something over maybe 5 or 10 or 20%. It has to pass through again back to the tariff, because those are the components that make up the tariff we pay. But so look at the problem with the regulator now. He has to make sure the operators have enough liquidity, can access funding to run their business. At the same time, it's going to look at the end point, the retail, the customers are in a position to take in. So this is a balancing. And that's why we say tariff is not a science only, it's also an art. You have to take all the fundamentals. You look at the socio-economic condition, and then you can ask yourself, is it the right time to increase the tariff? Some will argue that's never a right time. So bold action, do it. Now, I argue for wise action. An economic reform is not about boldness, it's also about wisdom. It's about looking at the context. So if there's a way they can help the discos, gencos operate well without suffocating the people much, they should do it. And look at the problem. If you over increase tariff when people can't afford it, you increase stealing of power, bypassing, corruption. End of the discos might lose more money if there's widespread, debt, widespread refusal to pay because people can't pay. So you have to balance it. We need to make sure they have liquidity to finance investment. We also have to make sure that the people can afford to pay. Otherwise, they will bypass systems, corrupt the system, and they increase collection losses. So these are the realities we deal with every day.
Right. And Doctor, looking at the body language of the government, clearly they think this is a lifesaver. This is what's going to save and reposition as well as revitalize the industry. What other thoughts do you have? I mean, you talked about injecting some funds into the operations of the discos, the gencos, and the transmission companies. But clearly that's why the government is saying, we need to do this because we can't afford to subsidize electricity. Knowing what you know about the industry, what other options are available on the table? That does not mean that Nigerians have to pay more for the same situation that they're dealing with right now.
I think there are two ways to make it possible. One is to improve efficiency. Look, the fuel and forex are not the only cost. I mean, forex is not the real cost. It's a rider. But the real cost is the fuel, the quantity generated, the operation and maintenance costs. So I think the regulators' work is to make sure that discos are very efficient. Now, if they are very efficient in terms of technology, in terms of change management, they can reduce their real costs by, let's say, 10-20%. And what that means, therefore, is that even if you factor in the change forex situation, then you have also lowered the real cost so that the impact, always about impact, so that the real impact of the increase might be less. That's number one. Number two is they could create, although government doesn't want to create exceptions, but they could create a special window to access forex, which is what some of the directors have been saying. But look, this sector is still nascent, it's still a young sector, and it's critical to economic development. Maybe without going back to the old regime of forex, discretionary forex window, maybe there could be a way government could help with forex in this industry, considering the strategic value. The other issue is around maybe gas. If you give a special gas cost, meaning that maybe NNPC or whoever supplies the gas will not take profit, you could reduce some aspect of that cost. So it's about cost management. You reduce some aspects, you allow some to go through. So the quantum, the overall impact will not be as high. So, for example, if the cost increase could be like 40% on the average, and you do all these efficiency savings, it might drop to 20%. I think there's need for government to allow the tariff to increase, but it should be increased reasonably. Again, increase according to class, who can pay. For example, why should we have a flat rate for everybody? In many countries of the world, you have two tiers. So at the basic consumption, let's say a 50 kilowatt per month, kilowatt per hour for a month, the cost will be X. Now, if you increase higher, it will be X plus 2. Now, what that does is that everybody is guaranteed a reasonable minimum electricity consumption. So if you are a low consumer, you have television, you have fan, maybe one small fridge, you are metered and you can conserve your energy, then you will still be paying this lower tariff. If you go higher, you pay more. I think we should create a process for pay as you can, or pay as you consume, so that you don't have to have too much subsidy that creates a fiscal crisis for government. You don't have to deprive utilities of access to revenue, but at the same time, you ensure that there is a protected class that you can protect. And again, if you look at the Act, it talks about Power Consumer Assistance Fund. The problem is that we rush to privatization without doing these things. There should be a fund. Those who wrote the rule know that if we go to get, responsive tariff, there will be some losses. So they say, create this fund. This could use it to do what they call demand side management. They look at customers who are low consumers and use that fund to mitigate their rates. But at the same time, allow those who can pay. So we need to do a lot of governance structure that will help the tariff to go up. But at the same time, the impact on the vulnerable, the impact on those who can't afford it will be less. And those who ought to pay more should pay more. For example, I spend so much on diesel. If I have a guarantee of additional 5 hours of power, I will prefer to pay more because the cost of diesel at, maybe then 30,000 by 9 liters that won't last more than 6-8 hours. It's better for me to have a 30% increase in my tariff and have regular control, regular power, and I won't have to buy the diesel. So 2 things will happen: improve power supply of the grid, increase tariff, and the impact on the people will be less. And again, communication is important. You have to communicate and tell the people, level up with them, transparency, not just sit in the office and make this rule. So that people will say, okay, fine, this is what I'm spending buying kerosene, buying fuel and buying diesel, but with 4 more or 6 more hours, regular, not you promise you don't deliver, regular. And if you don't deliver, that should be cost. You should return back money to consumers. So if next strengthens regulation and there's a guarantee of improvement of service, then most people will be willing to pay more for grid power than paying for diesel and petrol, especially as those costs, those items are also increasing. So I think we can do all these things. I believe that government should find a way to allow tariffs to increase, but increase in a more socially responsible manner. Those who can pay more, pay more. Those who need to be protected. And at the same time, there should be increase in service quality and time so that people will have incentive to continue to pay more tariff.
Okay, Prof. In discussing some of the points you made, we're exploring options to bring down costs. And sometimes when we read these things, we get the sense that there is no inclusivity in the whole conversation around how this cost can be reduced. On the one hand, is a government wanting to take payment for gas in dollars and yet wanting powers to be delivered cheaply. So talk us through what else we can do around that window. That's for the one hand. The other one is what other options on a broader scale, can we deploy to begin to improve the area of efficiency? Because essentially now people will tell you they are paying for darkness. And I'm saying this with respect to the Manitoba, the Aba example. Should we begin to see pockets of this kind of development, target production centers as we have in Aba and several other parts of the country? Are we going to see improvement if we have this if we replicate this model across the country?
Yeah, that's a good question. First, on the issue of paying for in dollar and collecting in naira, I mean, that's been the problem. People say, why should we pay for dollar for gas? The NMPC continues to insist on their independence. And it creates a problem because, look, if your cost is in dollar and then your revenue is in naira, it immediately creates a forex crisis for you. So if dollar goes up, you're in trouble. The whole calculation fails, and that's what we're seeing now. So I think there should be a policy reconciliation and harmonization so that we spend on naira, collect in naira, so there'll be no hedging as we have today. On the other issue around how you want to deal with the issue of reducing inefficiency, improving power, I think the Aba model and the new Electricity Act has increased the idea that states can handle power on their own, and the implication for that is that you might have off grids, you might have enclosed grids, and the meaning of enclosed grids is that you're going to see less transmission cost, which will reduce the cost of tariff eventually. Again, renewable energy will be a resource that will play a key role in managing the cost of production of power. So I think that we should activate the new electricity regime, which allows states to participate. We should better use of technology. We should have modular power. We should have off-grid and some microgrids and utilize next embedded generation. For example, why are many discos not procuring power outside the grid to increase their supply of electricity? Now, if you have a greater supply of electricity, then you have a greater, the unit cost will go down. So, for example, you increase the power supply in the grid from 6,000 potential and 4,000 actual to 10,000, 15,000.
I think we're having some challenges with the connection there, but I think we're going to get Dr. Sam Amadi back in a moment or two to further, espouse on his point there. It's very clear that there are so. Doctor, we appear to have you back, so please continue with your line of thought.
Okay, you can hear me now?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so I'm saying that if you be more innovative in the structure of the electricity industry, as the new act has provided, you are going to have a much more efficient network. So why pay more? Look at our transmission. It's trapped. It's radial, it's not very efficient. We need to make more investment. But if we move to the modular power, if you have states includes electricity supply, then you can bypass some of the very high cost of transmission because of our large territory, our low technology. The networks are bad, need to be revamped. Again, if you use renewable and embed them in distribution areas, then you probably have more access to power with less cost of transmission. So we should really unlock the sector, and that's what the act. So I'm surprised that after the Electricity Act, there's not been serious policy thinking around the roadmap that states can deal with. Many states, those states have met me. I'm helping some of the states, but the federal government needs to kind of create a structure that states can easily follow, so that this opportunity can be harnessed and some of the problems, incoherence in the network can be cleared up. See, we need a lot more attention by Minister, NEC, all the key players in solving this problem. That are too much of office work and too much of thinking around the act says. No, work it out practically. How can this help deliver product? So I think if we do all these things, we will reduce the cost of electricity and we increase, once you increase capacity. It's mathematics. Once you are dealing with a large quantity of electricity, you are going to have smaller unit cost, because most of the costs we are running today can be used to drive a bigger capacity. I mean, if you build a line from build a line, even if you have 1 megawatt, the same line will take it. The same cost is there. If you have 10,000 megawatts, the same line. So it's cheaper for you to have large quantity to run on those capital costs. But today, our capital cost is high, our quantity is low, and that's what is responsible for high cost of doing business. And again, we need investments. We need investments into the sector. The discos, the owners should maybe dilute their ownership and bring in more institutional investors who have capacity and can leverage financing.
Right.
The idea of investing today and getting paid tomorrow is not what you need for electricity. You need long-term investment so that gradually you recoup your money. Think about metering. Metering is going slowly because they don't have the capacity, or they don't want to make the large investment that will take you like 5-10 years before you get it back. And that's how this sector works. So everybody is on short money, short lease. We need to have our revenue made up today. And that's pressure on this tariff. Yeah. Look, tariffs don't increase large in the electricity market because it's 20 years, 25 years to amortize their cost. So the investor is patient. He makes the investment. But here, you don't have the product. You have a poor customer base, and you want to square the revenue and the cost immediately. That's the problem. It's not going to work easily because you have inefficiency, you don't have the quantity, people are not ready to pay, they don't even have the power. So what we should have done, if you had strong investors who could bite the sword for a period of time. They will improve the network, expand services. Then when power flows, more quantity flows, youth costs go down, and people will be more willing to pay. So I think in a way, government should also consider, how do we expand investment in this sector? What regulatory tools do we need to, act some of these non-performing discos to look for financial supporters, new investments, without disrupting the contracts, without creating risks, political risk, but do it in a way that's industry orderly, peer reviewed, and not by political, diktat. But the market evolves. Today we're talking about the banks consolidating, looking for
Prof.
to
Just
show
before
up
you go, because
that
we're
asset.
really out of time, just to pick you up on that particular point about the discos. The Minister of Power was, threatening fire and brimstone on those underperforming discos. Do you think that that is enough stimulus to get them to improve on service delivery? Very briefly before we go.
Well, I think you have to match support and the characteristic. They have problems you've not been able to solve. You are owing them a lot of money. So when you tell them you have to beef up your performance, you have to give them clear, measurable indicators, and you also have to give them policy support that will help them perform. There's nothing you gain by destroying them, taking their license, and go back to square zero. So this is nurturing, not threatening, but nurturing and nudging them to a higher level of performance.
Okay. Professor Sam Amadi, as always, a pleasure talking to you about these issues. Thank you so much for shedding light and, of course, for sharing your views and perspectives on this very pertinent issue. Thank you most kindly for joining us on the program.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a nice day.
And enjoy your stay, by the way.
Okay. It does appear that Sani Michael is